It's a great pleasure to welcome to the program this week Dr. Babatunde Osotimehin. He is the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and the Executive Director of the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA. It's good to have you with us on the show, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dr. Babatunde, this is not your first visit to Egypt. I believe you visited the country twice before. What changes have you noticed this time round?
This is not my third visit to Egypt. This is my umpteen visit. I've been here many times, but this is my third visit as Executive Director. Now, what changes have I noticed? I've noticed that we now have an Egypt where government is very anxious to have things done. I'm talking now about population, which is the preoccupation of my agency, and government has just launched a strategy for population. It's also launched a strategy for reproductive health, and they are very anxious to implement, and we are ready to work with government to make that happen.
So you feel that the political will is there, that there is high-level commitment?
Certainly, because I met with several ministers and the Prime Minister, and the word I hear is implementation, implementation, implementation. So we are willing to go and implement and make sure that we get results for the people of Egypt.
You've met with officials, as you just said, to discuss population-related challenges. Now, what are the biggest challenges?
The strategy speaks to four things. The first is the education of the girl child. I think it's an important entry point. The second is the issue of empowerment of women. If you educate a girl child and you empower women within the society, you actually develop the society. So that's number two. The third is family planning. Family planning to be able to reach every woman in Egypt that requires family planning and is not getting it. And the fourth is about young people. Egypt has a large proportion of its population, more than 60% of its population, as young people. And we need to capitalize on the energy they bring so that we can have a dividend out of it, so they can actually be engines of development and growth within an economy. And that requires investments in education, investments in health, investments in job creation, and investments in entrepreneurship training. If you do that and do it well, then you reap the demographic dividend. And I think that that's something we'll do with government.
Right now, a lot of Egyptian youth feel marginalized. What needs to happen to bring them back into the fold and reintegrate them?
I think it's about participation. Government needs to create a platform to ensure that they participate in conversation, and also we need to also create a platform for intergenerational dialogue so that both sides of the divide understand what is going on. You know, I always tell the story of my twin daughters who will sit on either side of me and talk to themselves, and I don't know what they're talking about. So it's important for us to allow young people to participate, and we should listen. We should also give them the opportunity to experiment. Sometimes they'll fail, but they must be allowed to experiment, fail and start again, and then go. And I think that is what is missing for most of the developing countries of the world.
In terms of girls' education, Egypt managed to bridge the gap at the primary level back in 2010. Where are we now? Are girls dropping out of school?
I think there was a sense at some point in the history of Egypt where, you know, early and forced marriage was beginning to rise, and girls were being given away in marriage at 9, at 10, And I think what government is trying to do is to reverse that. Make them go to school, stay in school. And I don't think that for development, an adequate development, primary education is enough. We now say that it has to be secondary education. And so if a girl goes to school and stays in school until she's 18 and above, the product is a different product. She is mature, physically, emotionally, psychologically, mentally. She is able to take decisions about herself. She is able to take decisions about a child if she has a child at that point. She also understands what nutrition means, what sanitation means, so she is able to look after herself and her child. And if you have that, what you are likely to have is a better outcome for child rearing and families. And if she says she doesn't want to get married, it's okay. She can go ahead, go get a job, make sure that she can be our own agent and look after herself very well.
To empower women politically and socially, we need to first empower them economically.
It is key and it's important. And I think that government needs to find ways of empowering women. Access to credit is one of them. Making sure you create opportunities for them. Some of them, in Africa for an example, we know that there are many women farmers, but they don't get credit for what they do. And I think it's important that we begin to provide them with access to credit so that when they farm, and they also make some money and they can look after their children, I think, and look after themselves. And I think that's an important thing. And going forward, I think that those are some of the things we have to do.
Sir, you mentioned family planning as one of the pillars of the new strategy. What needs to happen to change public perceptions about family planning?
Several things. The first is that we need to make sure the services are there. Because if I create demand for family planning, I must be sure that when a woman goes to a family planning clinic, she gets a service, and she gets quality service. And I think that requires several things. One, you must train human resources that will deliver the service and quality service for that. You must make sure that you have the necessary hardware to provide the service. You must also make sure that the supply chain system that delivers commodities to the clinic or to the outfit is there, so you never have stockouts. And once you've done that, you then we must concurrently educate the public about family planning, about what it means to women, about what it means to families, about what it means to save lives. Because a third of maternal mortality can be cut by just ensuring family planning. And if we can do that, then it means that women can space their births and can have children when they are fit for it and when they want it. So it's not just having children because they don't have access to family planning. And I think that those are things we can do and do very well.
What are the plans for reproductive health?
Plans for reproductive health, I also think that we must not and never separate family planning from reproductive health. Family planning is part of reproductive health. I think we must take it together. And when we talk about reproductive health, we're talking about women's access to antenatal care, women's access to delivery services, and women's access to treatment of HIV if she does have it, or treatment of sexually transmitted infections if she needs it. And those are the things we're talking about. Now, those things must be taken together with provision of family planning so that we have synergism in terms of the service we provide. And that implies that those we train actually have all of the skills to deliver their service. And we must ensure that we position the people who deliver the service close to the people who require it, not far. So when a woman has to walk 5 miles to get a service, she won't go. But if she just steps aside and goes next door, or 2 doors away, she's going to be encouraged to want to take that service.
It's not just the government's responsibility to implement this population strategy. The private sector too must come on board.
It is everybody's business. It's not private sector, there's the media, it is government, it's the international partners like ourselves who must come together, and civil society, to be able to do that effectively. So the private sector, yes, the private sector is important.
You met today, I believe, with some of our prominent businessmen. Are they willing to commit?
Yes. They actually came and said, yes, they are willing to. I met with one yesterday, I met with some today, and they're willing to commit, they're willing to spend resources to ensure that Egyptian women get the services and quality service which they're entitled to.
Sir, Egypt is planning a major international economic summit that's scheduled for March. What would UNFPA like to see as an outcome of that summit?
I think that what UNFPA would like to see at the outcome of the summit, which we'll discuss with the Prime Minister, is no matter what you talk about, people must be the center of that. So if you're talking of growing an economy, if you're talking of value-added agriculture, if you're talking about food security, if you're talking about clean energy, if you're talking about climate change, if you're talking about the issues of ICT and all, it must be people. People must be the center of it. And that's where we come in.
And not just people, young people and women.
Young people, young girls particularly, and women, because they are going to be the beneficiaries of this economic summit. And I think that's an important thing.
Egypt led the world when it hosted the population conference in the 90s. Do you see Egypt play a lead role once again?
I think Egypt is anxious to come back and take a lead role. We've been talking to government. We had a long meeting today with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they are willing. They think that Egypt is ready again to bounce back and take its preeminent position, not only in the region, but in the world.
There is the willingness, but what else needs to happen?
We have opportunities to do that. There are different opportunities, both in country and in the region and the world, where Egypt can come back and make strong statements about its desire to be part of the international community and to become the leader that it was. But beyond that is to ensure that in country they implement their population strategy and show the world that it's not just talk, but it's action.
Dr. Babatunde Oshotimehin, the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and the Executive Director of the Population Fund, UNFPA, many thanks for joining us on the program this week. It was a real pleasure talking to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and have a pleasant evening.